Welcome to LucaZone Build to Model Railway. In this episode, we're looking at trains, and specifically the Eurotunnel shuttles that are the star of this layout. I'll be going into a deep dive about building each of the 3D kits that make up the train. I've got a montage of my progress so far. But first, let's have an interview with PT Models who supply all the 3D kits that I'm using. Let's get started.
Hello, my name is Tom. I run a small business called PT Models, making 3D printed kits and parts, mostly N, going into 00 and some 009. Around 9 or 10 years ago, I joined Mid Essex Model Railway Club, which was my local club at the time, and met a chap there called Phil, who became a very good friend of mine. One of the things that Phil was interested in was 3D printing, so he purchased a printer and taught me how to CAD, and we spent the next couple of 3 years then learning the basics of 3D printing and producing some basic coach bodies that we could paint quite cheaply to practice our painting skills, improve our detailing skills and things like that, and also producing some bits and pieces for the club layouts which you couldn't purchase off the shelf. Unfortunately, at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, Phil passed away, but I was fortunate enough at the time to inherit Phil's 3D printer, which I used to continue drawing and learning and printing and finishing a few projects off that unfortunately Phil had never been able to finish. I then started a Facebook page showing off some of the things that I was working on, and one of the things was the Tunnel wagon project, which we'll come on to in a few moments. The sales and requests started to come in and it began to take off as a business. Basically, it starts with a large amount of research. I would firstly spend a couple of weeks in my spare time gathering images together, reference images, drawings, videos in a lot of cases of the units that I'd like to draw and model, and then they are drawn up in CAD. I use a program called Design Spark. It isn't the most widely used program by 3D modelers by the sounds of things. Others are far more sort of common, Fusion 360 and things like that, but that is the program that I learned CAD in, so I'm most familiar with, which is why I use it. Once a 3D drawing is complete in CAD, it then has to be put through another piece of software called a slicer, which basically cuts the drawing up into readable bits for the printer to read and therefore print. So it's drawn in CAD, it's run through the slicer, which produces a file which then goes onto the printer for the printer to read, and sometime later, depending on the size of model, you have a finished model on the printer. This began due to me having a couple of CJM Eurotunnel loco models, which I wanted to have some wagons to run with, but was struggling to get my hands on any, especially at a reasonable price. The CJM models and kits always went for a good price on the likes of eBay because of how sought after they were. So I found some basic drawings for the wagons, and after lots of studying of reference photographs, drew up some basic wagon drawings. I worked on the passenger rakes first, drawing up the carriers and then the loaders, and used ready to run bogies and wheels to try and give them the best possible running quality. I then worked on the HGV wagons, firstly the carrier, as this was bound to be the most awkward because of the crisscross grid design, getting that to print neatly. I test printed in filament but couldn't get the clarity as nice as it was going to come out in resin, so opted for a resin body and filament printed underframe. Finally, I did the HGV loader and then the HGV club car, all of which are now available and complete the range. And so far, I think we sold somewhere in the region of about 200 different kits. I think it's fantastic that you can draw something and sometime later you've got it in your hand. You haven't got to send the drawing off to a factory, wait weeks for it to arrive and things like that. The main piece of advice I would give to anybody that wants to get into 3D printing is learn how to draw. If you don't learn how to draw, then you are reliant upon others doing the drawing for you. But obviously, if that drawing isn't 100% exactly what you want, then you can't modify that, or you know, you can't have the print exactly as you want without doing it yourself. So I started with a relatively cheap, easily upgradable printer, which is a Creality Ender 3V2. Happened to find it on a Black Friday sale and paid, I think, less than £150 for it. It's been a great way to learn the very basics of 3D printing, the pitfalls, different filaments, how they print, and how to draw an object taking the printing process into account. The way to see us through Facebook. We have a Facebook page, PT Models. You can find us also at shows. We don't do a lot of shows. I'm a bit limited at the moment that PT Models has to fit around my day job, which is full-time, but I will have done 4 different shows this year around the sort of southeast area. The next show that we will be at is the Shenfield show of my club Mid Essex, and that is on Saturday the 19th of September. You can find the details for that either on my Facebook page or on the Mid Essex Model Railway Club Facebook page too.
So what I thought I would do here quickly is show you how the kits come from PT Models and the different things that they do, and then the simplicity of how to put them together. So this is, at the time of filming, this is a amenity coach for a HGV shuttle. Go away, fly. And you can see here you've got the interior, the exterior body, underframe, bogies there ready to paint up. You've got the wheels as well, so it's all 3D printed, and then you have a sturdy piece of card to give the little package some rigidity, and an instruction sheet inside. So let's have a look when you open it up. I will pre-qualify. I've obviously in my production already begun painting. You can see the original colour there. I've already been painting my models, so I've now already painted the underframe, and I've painted and cut out the little pins to attach the bogies with. But yeah, so there's your piece, what you get with the card in the back, all really nicely packaged. And then here's the instruction sheet. So what we've got here is the type of vehicle that you've purchased, all 3D resin printed and designed for easy construction, minimal modelling skills. You can see here, really amazing, and you'll see in a second how easy that is to put together. So yeah, it says here parts included for this particular one. It is the carrier body and underframe, 2 bogies, some pins, and actually this one is a HGV carrier wagon, so this is for the jigs of the ones at the back there. And then it says assembly and painting instructions. Minimal tidying may be required, so just checking over, making sure everything is going to look good on the outside, and then ensure pieces are clean and free from excess material. Before assembly, it's recommended you paint, and the underframe should be in a black and the body in a painted silver. I've got various shades that I've mixed together, and I've just got a straight matte black for the underframe. And then varnishing of the model is appropriate as well. Obviously, you should use a primer. So all the paints I've been using are primer paints, but you can then apply your own detailing and skills if you are so inclined. And then varnishing of the model. So the reason I'm doing this is because all the HGV kits that I was making earlier are now in the varnishing stage. So assembly of the underframe and body. The underframe needs to be glued to the body. A small amount of pressure can be applied to the edges, but be cautious because this is not straight plastic, so it's not as flexible. It's 3D printed. And then obviously in this particular one it says the jig can be used, as you saw in another video, to align all the parts up. And then attaching the bogies, they slot onto the designed pins, again 3D printed, really accurately modelled, even though these bogies in this particular one are off-the-shelf parts, I believe, from Backman Farish. The 3D print is designed to completely slot in, so you can see they drop in super easy there. So really well engineered. And then the finishing touches after glue is set. Check the alignment, ensure all parts are safely in place. Then it says compatibility with the Fash bogies and the coupling options. So these are much larger than normal vehicles. You can see I've got a coach here. Let's pull that away. I've got a coach there that I think is based on the Mark IV coaches. So that should be a standard size. And then you can see the body of the shuttle wagon next to it, and it's always going to be raised up. So that is going to create clearance issues between two vehicles like this, you see. So they're slightly further apart. But you can see the close coupler there, or the standard coupling. I've designed my layout so that shouldn't need to change. So I thought I'd go through how the shuttles, both tourist, passenger and the HGV freight shuttles, are made up formation-wise. What we have here is a original information sheet from a locomotive, from one of the kits from the exhibition centre there. You can see the actual exhibition centre address, and some details on fixing transfers and applying locomotive numbers so that they're all individual. And on the back here you've got the formations of the trains. So at the top there in the grey we have the passenger, then the bottom is the HGV, and then this basically describes each of the different vehicles that come in a train. So if we start with the passenger shuttles, also known as tourist shuttles. Oh, and sorry, it's awesome that it comes in English, French and Belgian, I believe it is, the three countries that were joined by the Eurotunnel shuttle, and the Eurostar going from UK to France and Belgium. So yeah, what we've got is the single deck loading vehicle. So that's here. It's telescopic in reality. So this large end telescopes all the way along and ends up at the end here. So that's the single deck section. Look, you can see there's no upper deck in that, just the lower deck. There we go. So that then joins on to a single deck carrier wagon. So you've got your lower deck windows and then just vents at the top here, a couple of emergency exit doors. There are 12 of those, I believe, 12 in a half set, and then it goes back to another single deck loading wagon. So what you've got is the cars will load on, or coaches or vans will load on, park into one of the carrier wagons, and then when you get to the journey at the other end, they will then drive off again and come out. Then you have the double deck section. So again, loader, carrier, loader. So that's what we've got here. You've got your the door at the front here slides into this gap, and inside here is a ramp that goes from ground level up to the upper deck, and then you have another door at the back here which slides to here, and that will allow vehicles to drive in and go along the lower deck. And at the front here, this is actually an aspect that was never used. You see this little window in the top here, there's actually a driver's cab in there. I think it's just for shunting, it's not a full locomotive cab. You couldn't drive the shuttle from that, but there is a little cab in the top there, and there's also a biker's area and toilets and things above the lower ramp for biker passengers. And it allowed the shuttles, I believe, either to be driven in the service area. So if they were moving them around in the yard, they wouldn't need a locomotive to do that. They could actually just drive the rake from here. I don't know how they get power for that, but yeah, that's something I should probably read up on, really. And then you go into your carrier wagon. Let's just come around this side. So you can see here, windows on the lower deck, windows on the upper deck, and some emergency doors. So yeah, that's the difference between the carrier wagons. With the single, you can tell there are windows on the upper deck there. And then you come along and we've got, yep, lower door exit and upper door exit. And obviously it's the same on both sides, so they can change platforms depending on which side they're loading or unloading from. So it's just like a ferry, roll-on, roll-off ferry. You can drive in at one end, carry all the way through, and drive out at the other end. You then have the freight shuttles. That consists of a locomotive, an amenity coach, and then loader, carrier, and unloader. And again, they come in two sections. So you've got your front half and then your rear half. So there are 14 or 16 carrier wagons on the HGV shuttle. You'll notice they're slightly shorter compared to the carrier wagons. They're the size of an average 40-ton lorry. I've got one just over here, so a typical lorry. And if I just put that against the carrier wagon, you can see there. So the loader is slightly longer to allow the lorry to drive on and straighten up before they go into the carrier. So we have our amenity coach where all the drivers, so the drivers don't travel with their lorry. On the passenger shuttle, all the cars, passengers stay with them. You can see they're fully enclosed, integral bodies. They're air conditioned and fireproof and everything. So the passengers stay with their vehicles on the tourist shuttles. On the freight shuttles, they are just a protective shell. This is the older design. This is the Mark 1 design. There's a Mark 2 and a Mark 3 design. I think even a Mark 4, where it's quite open. It actually looks like these wagons. And then they've got one that's covered over with a roof, and then one that's just got a roof over the cab end. So they pick up the drivers of the lorries and they bring them all back to the amenity coach, and then you've got the locomotive at this end, and that's where they all travel. They get a meal, there's a toilet, and then they are bussed back to their train, back to their truck, sorry, and they drive back off. A few months earlier, Right, here you join us on the passenger shuttle construction. I've got each of the body shells. These are single deck wagons and their little underskirts. And then over here you can see double deck wagons. You can see 2 rows of windows there and their skirts. They actually go this way up, but obviously I haven't painted the top. But yeah, you can see they just slot in underneath. And then a load of wheels in the back there and some pins to go in for the wheels. So yeah, we're going to be gluing each of these wagons. I then have some loading wagons there, got double deck and single deck, but we're mostly concentrating on just the body shells of the carrier wagons. And previously you saw that I was doing the HGV wagons. They're now all done and having their varnish. So yeah, let's roll on with putting these together. So we've got our parts. I've got them all painted up. I am going to do a little bit of extra detailing, such as the windows and the vents and the end corridor, before I varnish these particular ones. You can see here, this is double deck with the roller shutter doors on both levels. So first thing we want to do once all painted up is apply some glue just on the inside edges. There we go. Turn it over. Incidentally, I'm applying it to the main body rather than the underframe, because as I squash it in, I don't want the glue to, if I just take this bogey off a second, I don't want the glue to be pushed out of the way as the body comes down on top of it. So here we go, just slot in, literally look at that, click in, the precision is absolutely fantastic. And then there's this little central spar for rigidity, so I'm going to add a small amount of glue along that edge as well. Okay. And then I'm not going to seal these in for now, but we can drop our bogies in. So that's 1, that's 2, and then it does help actually using a little pair of tweezers to help align these. So I've got my painted pin and I just drop it in, line it up, let go, drop in 1. These do need to be glued, so you've got to be careful. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, how precise and beautiful it is. So just drop straight in there, and there we go. Our wagon, apart from a little bit of detailing, is ready to go. Look at that. That's absolutely incredible. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.